Marrakesh, Riga or Stockholm.
Mostly dry tomorrow with sunny spells, highest temperatures of 7 to 9 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
So, special cash machine this week. One simple amount for you to remember across the week. This Friday, someone guaranteed to win €75,000 exactly. Text play to 57557. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock on Friday. And then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn will make the call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings. The exact amount in euro and cents, and the cash is yours. So remember the amount, €75,000. Over 18s only. Text cost €2.50. You're playing across the Go Loud network of stations. Terms and conditions on newstalk.com.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it? Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Now, welcome along, Football Show. Gavin Cooney of the 42 here in the studio. You're very welcome.
Cheers, Joe.
We have Manchester United against Leeds this evening. Manchester United 0, Leeds 1. Half-time scoreline. The United team, we didn't give it out earlier on. De Gea is in goal. Dallo, Varane, Martinez, Luke Shaw at left back. They have Fred and Sabitzer, newly arrived, as the midfield two. Garnacho, Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford behind Wout Weghorst. Patrick Bamford leading the line for Leeds. And this one at Old Trafford, Garnacho with the goal for Leeds in the first minute.
That's allegedly the score. This isn't on TV, so it's not been broadcast. So this is the story, the score allegedly. So if we're going to believe live score, United are in fact a goal down.
And yet you did spot a crowd gathered watching BN Sports outside well-known pub in Dublin nearby.
I better not name the pub.
No,
which,
don't.
yeah, when I was on my way in, there was a screen outside and a couple of people huddled in the rain. 4 or 5 people huddled in the rain watching a feed of BN Sports.
Well, if I knew I could get BN Sports and be treated to Keys and Gray every week.
So Richard Keys must be a kind of an inspiration for you then, is he? You know, you're both well-known TV anchors.
Yeah.
In what ways do anchor listener? I said. In what ways does Richard Keys inspire you?
To be fair, I don't know if he does inspire me. I'll give him this. All right. He's never dull.
No, not at all.
For some people, that would be rule number 1. Don't be boring.
But are you not meant to be the facilitator in that chair now? I mean, are you not meant to be bringing out the best of your guests and maybe tone down your own personality?
Potentially. But then if you want to make lots more money, you could just be the main person and outshine your guests.
He really is the Simon and Andy Gray's the Garfunkel of that relationship now, I have to
And
say.
increasingly so over the years.
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
I didn't think so at Sky, I have to say, but like it really seems like Gray's the alpha, Keys is the alpha of that relationship.
Yeah.
And like...
Less damaged by the fallout from the scandal.
Yeah, just less willing to be damaged by it, I feel, is maybe the better interpretation of that.
Yeah.
But his blog is always a fantastic read. Maybe that's, if Gray does want to kind of regain parity in the minds of the West, maybe he should start a blog like
Yeah, I don't think
Keysy
has. I think he's happy to just fade away and play his golf and do his thing. Whereas Keys wants to still be front and centre.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen much of that game, obviously, but Manchester United's very good form of late could come to shuddering halt. Every time they get within a whisker of being in the question as to whether or not they could, gate crash the title race, they seem to take a backward step. So the question's never even asked.
Yeah, and I think the person most annoyed by that is Eric Ten Hag. I was really struck, it's going back a couple of weeks now, but I was really struck by his comments after the Arsenal game. They lost that in the last minute. I thought Arsenal were way better than them, and I thought United did well to compete even. Ten Hag was furious afterwards about the goals they gave away. So obviously he sees the opportunities that is there this season. You're now thinking Arsenal looks so good, but if there is a bit of a falter there for 3-4 games, and who knows, the Everton game might be the first of it.
Yeah.
Probably not. That opportunity is open. It looks like the assumption has been that the Premier League, you'll need 90 points to win the league because City and Liverpool are there. Well, Liverpool are gone, and City are wobbling to the point where there's serious question marks. We'll get to all the main question marks. But there's question marks as well as about what's going on in the field and what's going on in the dressing room. Many of which have been raised by Richard Keys' blog. today. He reckons something not right there.
Well, listen, Man City, explosive, extraordinary off the pitch, and then something very curious on the pitch as well, something not quite right. Give us your take on the last 48 hours and City and how this is likely to play out.
The word that keeps coming into my head, if you remember when we were all watching El Chiringuito during the Super League, bombazzo. You know, they hear, man, kept dropping this word like Florentino Perez, bombazzo. This is a bombazzo. Yeah. Bloody hell, like, it's a huge story. Like, I mean, like, the Premier League are effectively accusing their dominant team, one of the richest teams, of cheating and of lying about it since 2008. Massive allegations. And I always thought that, I'm surprised it's gone this far even. I'm surprised I read that statement and not just because it was couched in a ton of legalese and W dot this and rule C dot that, for them to actually get this far, because this investigation has been ongoing since 2018, since the football leaks and Der Spiegel. Like, Martin O'Neill was still the Ireland manager when this began. What a time. And this has been going on, this investigation has been going on in the background, and I just kind of assumed that it would go away, because I have, in either innocence or cynicism, I'm not sure which, just an assumption that football leagues, and it's not in their interests to regulate very heavily their own shareholders slash teams. But they've gone and done it. You know, these are hugely serious allegations that they've now put out there in the public domain. I mean, they've played their hand in the sense now everybody knows the stakes of this, and I know everything will be conducted in private, or supposedly in private, the independent commission hearing both sides of the argument. But yeah, I'm just still reeling by the fact that they've actually gone and done this, I have to say.
Which points to their confidence in their case, really.
Probably. Now, UEFA, you would imagine that UEFA had confidence in their case when they banned City for 2 years, and then that was overturned at CAS. But yeah, presumably, like, they're not going to come out and make these allegations against City without some conviction that they'll stick and that they're very serious. So obviously City are going to fight tooth and nail to clear their name, as is their right, with their lawyer. What is it, Lord Panic? The fantastically named Lord Panic.
Already this has many ingredients to get excited about. How long is this going to play out for, is the other worrying question.
Yeah, well, I mean, the assumption among everyone when this first broke was just like, it could be years. I was just thinking, really? Can this really go on for years? Can we...
You throw in enough objections, injunctions, appeals, and suddenly the legal bill is 20 million. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I can understand why it would take years. In the kind of the sporting part of me thinks, like, surely you need this done fairly quickly. You know, is the integrity of the entire competition, is it?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the extent to which a cloud now hangs over everything, and there's almost a sense of, well, what's the point in getting too invested in what happens really in Manchester City's fortunes over there?
This is the big thing about this story. It breaks the spell, because sport is kind of, you know, I think everyone engages with it knowing that it is, okay, it's fundamentally a construct and it's fundamentally ridiculous. But we're still engaging with this, and you engage in it on a certain level that when you watch teams on the pitch, the agreement is that everyone is playing by the same rules. And if it is now proven that over the last, since 2008, Man City have not been following the same rules as everyone and have lied about it. Now, City obviously insist that they've played by the book, and they may yet prove that. But if that's yet proven, that's hugely damaging to the integrity of what we've just watched. It's, you know, it's the same, like, you know, it's the Tour de France. Like, I mean, it's just like what I've been watching there has not been what I believed I was watching and what I was buying into. And that, I don't know, in my opinion, there was a strong line by Barney Ronay that he delegitimises, like, the melodrama and everything that's gone on in the league of the last 10 years. And I initially saw that word and you're thinking, that's OTT. But when you think about it, it does put an asterisk there, I have to say.
I was watching the Overlap Fans Forum and on YouTube, and the Man City fan, needless to say, was giving his say, and it was it was interesting when he was trying to appeal, not with much success, to the other fans in the room, and he said, like, come on everyone, this isn't doping, this isn't match fixing, we spent a few extra quid maybe. I guess, you know, and I do think, when you say Lance Armstrong there, that's what made me think of that moment. I'm not as outraged about this, maybe I should be, as Armstrong, for instance. It doesn't.
But why was Armstrong not? Like, Armstrong was basically okay. As it turns out, you couldn't believe what you were seeing there.
Yeah.
Do you not feel the same as? I mean, when the teams get onto the pitch, and like you can argue about like the rights and wrongs of should a state own Manchester City or any other football club. I think that's fair enough. But once they get to the pitch, there is. I think everyone agrees. Like, okay, there are agreed rules that everyone is playing by here. And if you're gonna go and as it turns out the one team wasn't playing by those rules at all as everyone else was.
Yeah.
That is corrosive. In my view, that is corrosive for this.
You're right. I suppose there's just part of me that can't wholly get away from the fact that it's not a level playing field. Anyway, this isn't some situation where there's a salary cap and the majority of teams can hit that salary cap comfortably, and it's who can spend it the best or who can be the most economical or the smartest with their money, with their 10 or 20 million. This is already, well, Man City are outspending 17 of you guys by a million miles already. So this is like, it's not like, man, this wonderful level playing field has been rocked. It was never that to begin with.
Yeah.
And therefore I don't find it as egregious as I would if it turned out that half the Man City players were doped to their gills, because then that would completely undermine what I'm watching on the pitch.
I don't necessarily
agree. It's not
agree.
a strong argument.
It's
It's just how I feel.
But it's also then, it's the allegation that they lied about it, that they played you all for fools.
But you can't, so that has been said. The worst part about this is they lied.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if they're going to do it, they sort of have to lie.
Yeah.
Is that not implicit in the doing it?
Yeah, but that doesn't make it all right.
I know, but like, let's just accept that they lied, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not like they broke the rules and they told the truth about it. I mean, when has that ever happened?
But why? Sorry, I don't get your point. Sorry.
So they broke FFP.
Yeah.
Well, then they're going to have to try and hide it if they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So why are we surprised that they lied about it? That's been added on as like a, they did this terrible thing and they lied about it.
Yeah, but that's a massive transgression in and of itself. I mean, you can both be unsurprised but still shocked that they did it. That they have gone and lied about it. I think that it massively damages what has happened before, and that's why I think if it gets to a point where there are penalties, they have to retrospectively strip the titles.
Wow.
You relitigate the past to protect the future. It was just like, okay, how are we going to believe that there's integrity in this league going forward? And look, this is all, this is an assumption that this plays out in one way. It's entirely possible that it doesn't play out that way. City insists they're innocent, in fairness, and that's their right and prerogative.
Irrefutable evidence.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because the majority of pundits, experts, people just taking a stab in the dark, their general conclusion is that going back and stripping titles, for some reason, no one's explained why, but people say with great confidence, incredibly complicated.
Well, it's only complicated if you then go about reassigning the title. And generally how these things have happened is they haven't been reassigned. So Juventus' first title wasn't reassigned. The second one went to Inter Milan. I'm not really I didn't kind of get a chance to read up on that enough, but I think maybe that was because maybe it was during the season. That season, this was 05-06.
Yes. And
Calciopoli was 06, because I remember before the World Cup.
And the interesting thing about that, and the exciting thing, if you're, what's his name, Panic?
Yeah, Lord Panic.
If you're Lord Panic, Juventus are still in the courts trying to get that title back.
Yeah.
So I'll do that for 80k a day for 15 years.
Oh no, this is this is a bombato of a different kind for our friends and partners in the legal world. Even like Marseille lost their league title, but back in under Bernard Tapie back in the early 90s, the league were like, we're going to give it to PSG. Like, here we are. And this is PSG, which is very different to the PSG we know now. We're owned by Canal Plus, the broadcaster, and they were like, this might not play well among our paying customers around outside of Paris. So lads, we're not going to take this league title. And I actually think PSG didn't even go into the Champions League next season, as was possibly their right. Yeah. So you could argue maybe everything is too contingent to go back. Now look, I would feel sorry for Jurgen Klopp, because clearly, like, if City were found to break the rules, Liverpool were obviously deserving title winners in, say, 2018, 2019, when they were like 11 millimetres away from...
I don't want to mention Brendan Rodgers, but if
anyone's
anyone's been wronged here,
Yeah, and then like Ole Gunnar can now look back and say, well, I won the league and you sacked me.
Yeah. To what extent, say this, and again, you have to, and I think quite rightly stress that Man City again have denied all allegations, and they welcome this opportunity to almost put to bed the general whiff of smoke coming out of that club for several years now.
Which is funny. I mean, the investigation's been going on since 2018, so they've been a while waiting for this opportunity, but nonetheless, they did stress the word impartial about this independent commission, which maybe hints at their view of how the investigation has been conducted by the Premier League.
Say they're found guilty, and say for a second they're not stripped of titles because for some reason it is impossibly complicated and difficult.
Which it's not, but okay.
Yeah. The titles remain. There is a fine, there is a points deduction going forward. To what extent will we almost come to park the last decade as non-existent? Will we even refer to the Aguero moment in the record books and in montages going forward on Sky and various other places? Will it just be almost wiped from the record?
No, I don't think it will.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to disentangle how you felt at that moment and how you lived it. And the reality about these great sporting moments is how you live them, really, rather than how they exist as kind of lines of Wikipedia page or accountancy or bookkeeping after it. So I think you just do the thing you do with a lot of sports when you look back and you remember it and then you go, oh, you know, how was I? Maybe that wasn't quite right. Yeah. But nonetheless, I think it's so hard. I mean, it's a wider debate about sports watching. You're effectively buying emotions with it, and you know it's kind of the same with this. Like, it's so hard. I mean, that's why, you know, stripping of titles and re-awarding them feels, I don't know, like athletes have done it. Sorry, it's happened with athletes all the time. Where
the Olympics have set a healthy precedent.
You know, where you know there'll be awards given out for championships going back for 8 years. Like, but
I guess I asked the question because, fairly or otherwise, the perception would be of City over the last decade, this doesn't all add up. And yet, most people have digested that, overlooked that, and been able to think, well, God, Kevin De Bruyne is bloody good, and Guardiola is a phenomenal manager, and Erling Haaland is a phenomenon, and you know that it's part of the story, but I wouldn't say it's the dominant part of the story. So if you wonder if official guilt is assigned to it now, might that supersede the football? It's hard to know.
I'd love the person I would imagine who is asking that question of himself is Pep Guardiola. It's very interesting.
Well, he's on the record in May of last year as saying, he was asked about the UEFA fine and the UEFA ban, which was overturned, and his response in May of last year was, I talked to the club, I asked them to explain. They explained perfectly, and I told them, if you're lying to me, I'm leaving the next day, and to quote him, I will not be your friend.
Yeah.
And that's his position. So he trusts them and he'll defend them implicitly.
With a lot of plausible deniability in there now.
True. But if it were to turn out, and again I stress, you know, we don't have the details here, and I'm not making an allegation in the slightest, but if it turned out, for instance, that Pep had a similar arrangement to Mancini, then suddenly he's in a very tricky position to say the least.
Then, like, I mean, that destroys his credibility.
It does, yeah. But again, I mean, I suspect Pep said, I'll have my 20 million up front, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And no funny business, based on those comments in May. So, well, I don't know. I guess going to be curious to see his press conference on Friday, and we go from there.
Funny, like, I mean, there is a part of me that feels sorry for, like, he's going to be wheeled out as the spokesperson for all this.
Yeah.
You know, what more can he say other than repeat his his very almost kind of cute kind of you know, like, I mean, I'll not be your friend anymore, you know, I'll take my ball and I'll play elsewhere. So what will he do but repeat that, when realistically the people who have to answer this are those who are currently hiding behind that statement on the Manchester City website.
Yeah. Final thought on City on the pitch.
What's going on?
Yeah, I was hoping you might be able to tell me, because I kind of, the last few weeks have been off and I've been looking on at a glance, and the Cancelo departure seemed to happen overnight. Very strange in light of the player he was perceived to be just last year. Yeah. And in the absence of Zinchenko. And then they refused to pass the ball to Erling Haaland, even though that had worked quite well for the early part of the season. De Bruyne is on the bench.
Yeah.
Some of their better defenders are on the bench.
Diaz, the Laporte, nowhere to be seen.
Bully them.
Yeah.
And Pep is just giving all manner of soundings which suggest he's unhappy with the attitude of the team, and it's not a happy camp. So
he seems
where are
stoked by this terror of complacency, which would make sense in a way. But maybe this is his way of addressing the complacency. A couple of weeks ago, he did come out with one of his stranger post-match press conferences, and there have been a few over his time, where he openly asked, I'm not sure, do we want to win this league, you know? So obviously maybe that's what he's worried about. And he does place a lot of stock in the in training around attitude and body language and
Body weight.
Body weight. Poor Calvin Phillips. Yeah, so it's very, very unusual. Like, I mean, you can't argue that he's got his best players on the pitch at the moment, and you know, it's not like they're injured. He's just not picking them to the point where one of them has now gone to play for Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
But he's strengthened Arsenal in the Premier League, and now he's gone and strengthened Bayern Munich in the Champions League. It's very, very unusual, and even the way he's playing, like they're not playing to Haaland's strengths at all.
No, they're generally ignoring him.
They just don't pass to him.
No.
And I understand, like, I mean, I guess the principle is if you hit a long ball to Haaland, it could get cut out and then all of a sudden you're out of position, then you could get shredded on the counter very easily. Well, they're getting shredded on the counter very easily. Spurs didn't have to do anything magnificent at the weekend. You know, he did his thing of playing the left back, who's Rico Lewis now in midfield, presumably worried to kind of gum up an area to stop Kane dropping into. So they just like popped the ball down the side that he was meant to stand in.
Yeah. And
Kulusevski made hay. Like it was pretty easy to unlock them. And even Grealish is now playing and playing all the time. And I kind of am beginning to agree with Graham Souness, because remember, Souness used to complain that Grealish gets fouled too much. And I thought, well, that's because, you know, he was the best player in the Villa team. He dribbles with the ball. He's the best player on the field. Of course he's going to get fouled. But he does slow City down a lot now. I mean, he was getting praised by Sky's commentary at the weekend for being City's one good player. He took the fight to them. But it's very one-dimensional. And that's partly because he had no one going round the outside of him, because Rico Lewis was in midfield.
Yeah.
But just like pick up the ball, try and dribble inside Emerson Royale, probably get a free kick, then the free kick goes nowhere. And it's just like, you just remember City at their best would be getting the ball to the byline on these cutbacks, and it'd just be like death by 1,000 cutbacks. They don't play those cutbacks at all anymore. It's really hard to remember many of them in the last couple of weeks. So maybe it's hard to argue that it's a team adapting to Haaland, because they look to have adapted to him instantly at the start of the season.
That's the ironic point.
And now, like you say, they're not adapting to him, they're just ignoring him.
Yeah, I mean, in the game at Old Trafford, there was example after example on Match of the Day that evening of really good Haaland runs into really good spaces, just ignored. And on the Rico Lewis into midfield point, you know, it's funny, Kenny Cunningham in here is just vociferous. He is the last man standing who doesn't like Zinchenko in midfield for Arsenal,
right, and
Xhaka pushing on. He's like, you're seeing that space exposed on the counter. It's not really happening to Arsenal, but his exact complaint there is happening to City. For whatever reason. And I don't know, the confidence that they were going to go on this 15-16 match on winning run to
I was just kind of waiting for it to happen, you know, and just waiting for like the first game for their first win, and just like, okay, off they go now. Maybe it's not going to happen, and maybe Arsenal have been pretty much perfect for the first half of the season, and I thought they might have to do that again to win the league. Now it looks like maybe they won't.
We're going to take a short break. Gavin Cooney is staying with us. Football Show is brought to you by Sky. Watch every live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Back in 1 second.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk. News Talk Breakfast.
And he says quite bluntly, he says the state does not have unlimited resources to concede litigation on every occasion. And he says stereotyping the state as cruel and unfair and that kind of thing that goes on, he says is fundamentally wrong. And he said that would imply that the state should concede on every single case. And if it doesn't, it's somehow cruel and unfair.
News Talk Breakfast with Ciara Kelly and Shane Coleman.
In association with Air Evo.
Weekday mornings at 7 on News Talk.
Wave goodbye to winter and make it a fabulous February with GoBreaks.ie. Give yourself something to look forward to and choose from our amazing selection of 3, 4 and 5-star hotels around Ireland from just €80 per night. Whether it's a romantic hideaway, a family breakaway or a chance to get away. Book now for a great deal and go experience, go explore with GoBreaks.ie as recommended by News Talk. Go Breaks. T's and C's at GoBreaks.ie.
The sale you've been searching for is back. Switch to Virgin Media now and enjoy 500 meg ultra-fast reliable broadband and TV 360 for just €54 a month for 12 months. Sale ends soon. Switch in-store or at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media, bring on amazing.
T's and C's apply. See virginmedia.ie, subject to availability. New customers only, 12-month contract. 500 meg broadband and big TV, €54 a month for 12 months, €99 thereafter. Ends February 15th, 2023.
Island's Edge Stout is less bitter, and so is Alana Rourke from Dublin. Alana.
Well, my so-called best friend Emma knew I liked this guy Eric, but then she asked him out before I could. And 2 years later they were married.
Ah, no.
Yeah, but I'm not so bitter about it now.
Well, that's good.
Especially since Eric ended up ageing like milk left out in the sun.
Yeah, we're going for less bitter here now.
And the kids. Oh, the kids, right?
No, sorry. Thank you, Alana. Okay, thanks for sharing. Island's Edge. It's better, less bitter.
Get the facts, be drink aware, visit drinkaware.ie.
Choosing the right car can take time. You need to find the perfect fit. A car that ticks all your boxes. We call it the Opel Mokka. Clever design, spacious interior, and oh so good looking. And as it's available in petrol, diesel, or all electric, the only choice is which Mokka is right for you. The Opel Mokka. Available at your local Opel dealer now. Your Mokka, your way.
VHI Life is more than just a decision to get life insurance. It's a decision to live life with less worry, to not think twice about the financial security of your children, and to give your partner peace of mind. VHI Life. It's a good decision. For life. Call us for a quote. Terms and conditions apply. VHI Healthcare DAC trading is VHI Healthcare is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland and is tied to Zurich Life Assurance plc for VHI Life Term Insurance.
SEK Dublin International School in Greystones is now accepting admissions for the upcoming academic year. Part of the SEK Education Group. With 10 private schools in Europe and the Middle East, SEK Dublin is a secondary co-educational private school for 12 to 18-year-olds and the first school in Ireland to offer the prestigious International Baccalaureate Middle Years and Diploma programmes. To learn more and apply, call 01 287 4175 or visit sek.ie.
This is an emergency appeal from Concern Worldwide. Families in Turkey and Syria are struggling to survive in the aftermath of two devastating earthquakes, and freezing temperatures are making their situation even more desperate. Please help Concern provide blankets and shelter to those most in need. Visit concern.net today and give what you can. Thank you.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
And now you're very welcome back. Joe Molloy here, Gavin Cooney in studio as well. So the latest from Old Trafford. Ganato had put Leeds a goal up after just 1 minute. Rafael Varane scored an own goal 3 minutes into the second half. So that was Manchester United 0, Leeds 2. And now on 62 minutes, we're just past the hour mark. Who else but Marcus Rashford has scored for Manchester United? They are 2-1 down, about half an hour to go. The Rashford thing is eye-catching.
Yeah.
Is Rashford 2.0 better than Rashford, who burst on the scene and was really, really good? It's starting to lean toward 2.0.
Probably. Maybe the sample size isn't quite large enough yet, but he's been outstanding.
Yeah.
Just been absolutely brilliant. And hasn't, not all of his goals have been running him behind, in fairness. Like even that goal of the weekend was Palace. Palace who they played the weekend? I think it was. That second goal. That ultimately won them the game. Really clever finish, It's just really good reactions in the 6-yard box. It wasn't a case of the cross just hit him and went in. He did have to kind of slightly manipulate his body. So he's been brilliant. I think part of it is probably he's fully injury free now. I think maybe that's a big part of his current form. He does, yeah. He looks stronger, he looks leaner, and he just he'll be. I think he's a shoe in now for for the team of the year, and probably a contender for player of the year. To be quite honest with,
certainly Manchester United's.
Yeah.
Although Casemiro's bloody good as well. Lads, says anonymous Man City fan, shut up about it till the results come out. And you're right, we are a bit shite this year.
Well, I mean,
let's not talk about this huge thing until. Let Lord Panic have his few years.
Another 4 years before Lord Panic has any results for us.
That is the grim thought.
Yeah,
it's all very exciting now, but give it 6 months. So you're keeping an eye on a few different things. Liverpool at the weekend caught your eye for obvious reasons. I mean, it's not even surprising at this stage, although
the scale of it is surprising.
Even Klopp acknowledged this was like a new low in terms of performance.
It probably was, yeah. Maybe the defeat against Brighton was worse just because they did nothing in that game. There was a period started the second half where I think Klopp used the phrase that they look like a Liverpool team for a little while, but they're just they're just so flimsy in the counter now. They never really used to get cut open on the counter attack, but when Ruben Neves is galloping into the penalty area and scoring from close range, you're in trouble. Obviously, the headline kind of outcome of Klopp's press conference was this weird set to with James Pearce of The Athletic, where he refused to answer his question. James Pearce by no means anyone's idea of a highly critical journalist.
Yeah. And even when Liverpool score, he'll tweet goal and big caps and really pulling for the team.
Yeah, no, massively. He was a very fair journalist, and he wouldn't have been OTT at all. He was subsequently explaining on an Athletic podcast that Klopp seemingly got him mixed up with someone else, which is even stranger.
Yeah, to really go in that hard.
Yeah, which that never looks good. And I know there was a couple of people coming back and say, well, Ferguson banned journalists. Ferguson banned journalists at a point of strength. He was never, he was just
this looks like
let's flex here rather than grapple for dry land. But there was other interesting stuff there. I think it was maybe with the BBC. He basically he sounded like he was just bewildered by the whole thing, talking about how players were losing challenges in midfield, and I don't really understand how that happened. I think that kind of sums them up.
He's been making that point about challenges. Fairly consistently. We're all talking about energy, and he hasn't really gone into that sphere too readily, but he absolutely is talking about challenges all year.
But they just look like a team whose entire world has been shattered, and they just have no idea what's in front of them now. Because that team at its best was such a finely tuned machine, and you need total buy-in almost on an automatic basis. Just you'll run here, I'll press behind you and fill that space, and then there's no way we can get caught out in the counter-attack because there's no space between any of us. And that's gone now. They just have no... they're just such a shambles.
Yeah.
It's kind of breathtaking. And look, there's problems at every level now. There's the club is in a kind of a limbo. It's for sale. There's seemingly a lack of leadership behind the scenes. Obviously, Michael Edwards, the sporting director, is gone.
Yeah.
Julian Ward, the guy who only took charge last summer, is on his way out as well, and now being linked with a role at Ajax, which is kind of strange. If he needs a break, as it was reported, if he was to join Ajax in the summer, that would suggest that he didn't need a break from football. He just needed a break from Liverpool.
Melissa Reddy had a piece on the Sky Sports website, and actually I mentioned it last night to Dan, so I won't labour the point for anybody who's listening in again this evening, but in effect she was charting the brain drain at the club. And one of, I suppose, if you're Jurgen Klopp and feeling paranoid, the more damning lines was that certain people didn't feel they were empowered to do their jobs to the fullest extent, hence they're getting out of here. And so that's been pointed to as an aspect here, that slowly but surely over 2-3 years, all the people that made the club tick have dissipated.
Yeah.
Allied to an aging team, allied to injuries, allied to, well, I don't know what else. Exhaustion? I don't know.
I guess exhaustion. There have been, Thiago, I know, and even Klopp himself has accepted the whole 63-game season last season has left its scars, which isn't surprising, really. They came so close and they won 2 trophies, but then just the way it ended, lose the Premier League by when Salah scored to put them ahead against Wolves, he celebrated as if that's the one to win the league. And then you could see Liverpool fans in the crowd were a bit glum, and they basically told Salah, no, City have just gone ahead here.
Yeah.
That must be so crushing for them.
And parallel universe, of course, and we'll never know, it would have been so interesting if they'd won the quadruple, for instance. Was this hangover coming regardless?
Yeah, possibly.
Or would they have been buoyed and propelled into...
I don't know. There must be, they've climbed that mountain and come so close to the peak very often now. It must be so difficult to come down again.
Well, I happened to watch the first game of the season against Fulham, and they just struck me. Van Dijk in particular, I don't know why he jumped out, but there was just such... I've repeated myself with this point, that they stunk of... how can we possibly get up for Fulham away? With all their enthusiasm. It was real, And then I really bought into that theory when they were excellent against City.
Yeah.
And there was Van Dijk sliding, lunging along the ground, and you thought, okay, it's an attitude issue.
Yeah.
But I don't know, if it was an attitude issue, things have become so stark in recent weeks, they would have copped themselves on. So it's more than that.
But now, look, you would address that exhaustion by refreshing the team, and they haven't done that. Now, part of me doesn't blame them massively for not doing that, to be quite honest, because... you see how close they came last year. You know, like, I mean, had they signed a midfielder who would have been hitting his stride this season to kind of ease him in last year, maybe you drop points somewhere. And then, you know, like, you have to be at such breakneck. They had to spend all of last season at such breakneck pace. There was no time almost to refresh. We'll just wring everything, wring out everything that's left in this group. So I have a little bit of sympathy there, and I can't remember where I read it, but it was a good line that maybe Klopp has shown too much loyalty to these players, but they deserve loyalty. And
nobody was saying ditch them in the summer either.
Part of me does think that, like, you know, they definitely have. They've made a mistake in not bringing a midfielder, at least one. I mean, Thiago's the last permanent midfielder signed. Maybe they were like, we wait for the right guy, like they did with Van Dijk. But, you know, they were waiting for Camavinga, went to Real Madrid. Waiting for Tchouaméni, went to Real Madrid. Waiting for Jude Bellingham, which is almost like a Beckett play at this point.
Bellingham must be thinking,
I know. Just like, do I really want this?
And losing Wijnaldum to PSG will double your wages.
Yeah.
That's got to gnaw at Klopp as well. 2-2.
Oh, wow.
At Old Trafford. Who else but Jadon Sancho?
Oh, I was going to say Marcus Rashford. Oh, so Sancho's involved.
Jadon Sancho. Welcome back,
that's a huge moment for him.
Yeah, potentially. So presumably he came on as a substitute. He did come on for Wout Weghorst.
Oh, there you go.
And has scored. Sancho, going to be very interesting because arrived to much fanfare. Really, I mean, I hadn't watched a huge amount of Sancho at Dortmund, but watching him in the Premier League, no real pace.
Yeah, I was surprised at that as well.
This is not very scary. And all you could say in his defence was he was pitched into a team which just wasn't functioning.
Yeah.
And maybe Dortmund, things were very well organised. That's the kind of system he flourishes in.
That was some of the reporting at the time after, you know, there were the Sancho was eating Jadon Sancho pieces, and one of the things that was reported was, look, he needs to be in a kind of a functioning system like he was at Dortmund. I always kind of felt like him and Jack Grealish went to the wrong Manchester clubs.
Yeah.
I always felt like, now it's probably different now. I always felt like Grealish was a better United fit.
He was perfect for that United. Yeah. But what's thrown us is that now in the functioning system, Sancho seems to have struggled, and there were all sorts of rumours of attitude and various other things. So,
and Ten Hag effectively said he wasn't fit enough, so he just kind of sent him off for a while. So whatever's going on there, we don't know the full story, I suppose. But if he can rehabilitate him, it's just another. It's another win for Eric Ten Hag. Like, he's getting everything right.
So our concluding thoughts on Liverpool, I suspect, are no different to what they would have been for the last several weeks, if not months. There's no sign of this ending.
No, there's like, I mean, whenever you hear a fan say, well, at least that's rock bottom, that's always the most optimistic note that they can find. There is always further to fall. That, like, the team looks completely broken. The manager now looks not just downcast, but he looks genuinely out of ideas and at a complete loss to explain this. And can you think of a worse fixture than next on the list than Sean Dyche's Everton coming to Anfield? You can just imagine. You can he's sitting wherever he is now, Sean Dyche, licking his lips at the thought of going. I was going to say silencing Anfield. It's going to be pretty quiet from the off, I'd imagine. So no, I don't know, and like maybe they'll hang their hat in this Real Madrid tie. I think coming face to face with Real Madrid is a nightmare for them. I mean, they've been stoked by Manchester City. They've also been stoked by Madrid. Madrid have signed the midfielders that they were meant to sign, and they keep knocking them out of the Champions League and keep beating them in finals. So it's a hard row for them.
What is your understanding of this Qatari interest in Manchester United?
Yeah, so just the same news reports that everyone else has read in the Mail this morning, that there was a Qatari bid for Manchester United, that there was interest there. Obviously, the Glazers want £6 billion for their cash machine, which is good work if you can get it. And then I wasn't really sure who they were. There seems to be like, you know, are they? Is this the government or is this the royal family?
So when we say Qatari,
yeah, this seemed like private Qatari billionaires, and I was just thinking, are there many of those? And then the Guardian reported that it is the Emir of Qatar who's interested in buying Manchester United. Obviously, this would create somewhat of a conflict of interest given the ownership in Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah.
Now, you could say that's one arm of the Qatari state. Was it QSI own Paris Saint-Germain? So you could say, well, look, Qatar Airways could buy Manchester United, and then maybe it might satisfy. But obviously that would create, in theory, a conflict of interest in the Champions League. Like how could PSG and Man United, if they were owned by the same entity, compete against each other in the same competition. But there was a rather quaint line in the Guardian report. It's just like, you know, this is they have recognised this issue and are looking at ways of solving it. One of the ways proposed is to convince UEFA to basically change the rule.
They'll have a chance of doing that,
because like UEFA had the chance to put their foot down around this years ago around the Red Bull Leipzig, Red Bull Salzburg thing. And they fudged it. You know what I mean? They've said, well, you know, one is Red Bull and one is Rasenball. I think Rasenball might be Leipzig, I think. But the fact I get them mixed up is mere proof of the fudge. So again, you know, that's a separate point, but that's again where football regulating itself has not really worked out. But
and what if like the Premier League things have changed post Newcastle when it comes to human rights?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
it's a new and bold Premier League
since Monday morning. Maybe like, I mean, my impression of the Premier League was always you keep the money coming, we're kind of going to look the other way. Now it would seem, according to reporting definitely by David Conn in the Guardian, that you know the UK government were very interested in the Saudis buying Newcastle. There seemed to be a little bit of resistance from the Premier League for a long time during that. And then Richard Masters had to come out and tell us with a straight face that PIF, the Saudi Sovereign Fund, is not linked, is not run by the Saudi
and if
state.
we find any evidence that it is, we'll be sure to tell you.
So look, I mean that's what I mean. Basically, most fans, I don't say most fans, that's unfair of me, but definitely there's a rump of the online fan. Just find me a sheikh.
Yeah,
find me a sovereign wealth fund.
Liverpool fans are desperate for a good sheikh to come in.
It's crazy, like, and it's just look. Will it happen? Maybe it's not. There was a suggestion as well in a separate piece in The Guardian that the Glazers want to basically flush out a few bids. Like there is a deadline for bids for United by the end of this month. So
be interesting to see where that all goes, you know. Like the big pundits, spokespeople, football people in the UK, the likes of Neville, Qataris, that's, you know, not least post to Ian Hislop, that's an interesting case. Roy Keane, vociferous in Qatar.
Yeah.
We should not be here. I would presume that applies to you should not own Manchester United.
You would hope so.
So,
but
were this to start, this all becomes very.
There would be some pressure on to be consistent on that line. I don't know whether they will. I mean, the most of the English pundits have been quite weak on that issue generally. You know, I mean, you know, while they railed against the Super League. Then Gary Neville was on talking about, well, you know, if we engage with the Saudis, maybe this Newcastle being owned by Saudi Arabia gives a chance to engage and maybe, you know, bring some of the West progress to them.
I think in fairness,
just screaming at his naivety.
Yeah, I think latterly he conceded.
Yeah,
that was wrong.
Did he? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then
the Qatar issue came up. So
yeah, and then it was the same thing. It was just like, you know, well, I can go and make my points and be in. Or you can, but like, I mean, I was there. I mean, I've said, not to keep going back to Richard Keys, he did sit with a straight face and describe this as the People's World Cup, you know? It's just like, you know. But I suppose, look, if Neville was at least going on trying to make his point, that's a lot more admirable than calling this the People's World Cup.
Yeah, still 2-2 between Manchester United and Leeds. We'll see how that Qatari issue plays out. 8 minutes to go in the game. I was asking you anything of note, anything you want to mention. There are two kinds of people at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Me and you are on different sides of this line.
Okay.
There are people who find the Ryan Reynolds Wrexham thing interesting.
Okay.
I just haven't yet.
Oh, as a concept? No.
Just everything about, like, you said Billy Sharp versus Wrexham.
Well, I found his comments funny.
I don't know what it means.
I'm going to disappoint you and all your listeners by saying I actually agree with you that I don't find their owning Wrexham overly interesting.
Okay.
And I kind of feel a bit queasy about it.
Have you watched the documentary yet?
No, I've not.
No, me neither.
There's just too many of them. There's too many of these documentaries to watch, you know. And now there's like a golf one coming out that I kind of really want to watch. I think I will watch that.
Yeah.
Have you watched it?
Yeah, well, I spoke to someone who had.
Okay.
Dull was the...
Oh no, really?
Yeah, and the trailer was very worrying because it was just a bunch of golfers saying it's really hard to win on tour.
Oh, because I was hoping that we would get some of the live.
Well, fingers crossed we do, but it was a strange choice of theme for the trailer.
Yeah.
Like basically the most anodyne, they say it after every interview anyway, theme. No, guys, it's really hard to win on tour.
Yeah.
Just, that was golfer after golfer. It's just so hard to win out here. Like,
okay.
I mean, if that's your trailer,
yeah,
slightly concerned.
Yeah, okay.
And I spoke to someone who watched 3 episodes.
Right.
And they said nothing interesting so far.
And did McElroy Had McIlroy featured across those three?
He does. I don't know if he features across those three. Maybe they hold you in suspense for him. He certainly did sit down for a big interview.
Yeah.
But even again, like, if you want a McIlroy interview, go read the 20,000 word Paul Kimmage one.
Yeah, no.
He's not quietly hidden away for the other.
I know.
50
It's just like
weeks of the year.
McIlroy either is fundamentally interesting, or at least is one of the few great sports people to understand that he should be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know which is which. Anyway, sorry, that is a tangent. I haven't watched the Wrexham thing. I just find Billy Sharp's comments very funny afterwards.
Remind me, Billy Sharp.
Billy Sharp is who I have to say, before I turned on this match last night, assumed retired in 2006.
Right.
It is the rather burly striker leading the line for Sheffield United at the moment, and scored it was 3-1 after it was 3-1 in the replay last night in the FA Cup, but he scored the second goal deep into injury time to break their hearts, and he kind of mimicked like wiping tears from his eyes in front of the Wrexham fans afterwards, and because Wrexham are kind of everyone's fairy tale story. They're the non-league side that has gone well, and like there's Ryan Reynolds, Stardust here, and like it's just such an interesting story. And Billy Sharp was just like, I'm happy we beat them. They disrespected us. I felt a bit disrespected in the build-up.
Had they?
Well, I didn't know anything about this. So it's only today that it has surfaced that 3 of the Wrexham players had celebrated. Down the camera, celebrated a goal by doing Son's little kind of celebration where he makes a rectangle out of his fingers and thumbs, and they put this up at Tottenham Hotspur, and they had drawn the winner would play Spurs in the next round. But as it turns out, the original sin is of course the documentary, because Son seemingly watched this Welcome to Wrexham? Is that what it's called?
I think so.
The Wrexham documentary, as everyone will know it by. So Son apparently loved it. Ben Davis introduced him to it, his teammate, and obviously Ben Davis as well. So seemingly that is the motivation, whether genuine or otherwise, that Billy Sharp latched onto. And obviously, like the cameras, the documentary cameras were everywhere, and I think one of the Sheffield United players basically shoved that in your documentary. It's just like, it's a great line, but it's kind of weird, like, because obviously there's been plenty of these behind scenes documentaries, lots of them on Amazon. There's one on Newcastle, by the way. That's the latest one.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't wait to see more of Eddie Howe.
Yeah. Because they were filming him in the dressing room recently, so I presume it's
so that's what that's for. But there's so many of them. But the Wrexham, at least that's there.
Pete's having a heart attack. We got to go soon.
Oh, sorry.
Final thought, Gavin.
Oh, sorry. Final thought is just that Wrexham exists just because of the documentary, which makes me feel a little bit queasy.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. Ad break.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, watch every single live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
Are you a member of St. Paul's Garda Credit Union? Take control of your finances today. While many financial institutions